Welcome to Take a Side, the sports talk show that lets you, the viewer, choose our winners. As always, be sure to get on Sided.co and the Sided Debates app to post your arguments for a chance to stand atop the Sided leaderboard and win a $25 Amazon gift card. Shout out to last week's winner, Mark Davis Jr., for his first win atop the Sided leaderboard. We've got a great show for you today featuring a special guest. But before we get to that, let's talk NFL football. 9 weeks into the NFL season, the NFC West has emerged as the NFL's best division. The Seattle Seahawks currently lead the division at 6-2, and with the Arizona Cardinals and the Los Angeles Rams not far behind at 5-3. The San Francisco 49ers are also still in contention despite a number of key injuries as they sit at 4-5. I'm joined by Matt Minear and Marena Sever to debate who is the biggest threat to win the NFC West.
I think hands down the Arizona Cardinals are the biggest threat in the NFC West right now. And let's start by talking offense, because the Cardinals, and this is like my favorite thing that I've ever heard in my life, the Cardinals have the #1 offense in the NFL right now, the #1 offense. Seattle's number 3, okay, I'll give them that. I'm not saying that Seattle doesn't have a good offense, but Arizona's #1, and there's this great clip of Kyler Murray in a press conference where he's being told that, and he turns to talk to someone behind him, and he has to ask, is that real? And I kind of reacted the same way when I found out, but when you watch them play, it just makes sense. They average 422 yards a game. Kyler Murray is the biggest threat in the NFC West player-wise, I think, as well, because he's so hard to defend against. He's all over the pocket, and he's really great when they design runs for him, but where he's most dangerous is in those situations where he's scrambling. DeAndre Hopkins is a huge pickup. Kenyon Drake got hurt, but he's a great running back. Chase Edmonds has really emerged as a phenomenal running back on that team. Christian Kirk, great second receiver. They just offensively are a massive threat. I think that game against Seattle totally proved that, because they just really bested Seattle. They just do have that slight offensive edge, and they're the best offensive team in the NFL right now, and I think that's one of many reasons why they are easily the biggest threat in this division.
Yeah, I think if you look at both these teams, Seattle and Arizona, they're very similar on the offensive side of the ball. You have Russell Wilson and Kyler Murray, who are almost similar, who can escape the pocket, run for 20 yards, or throw a 50-yard touchdown from one of the receivers. But I think the thing that highlights Seattle is they have one of the best receiving corps in the league, I think. You get DK Metcalf is an absolute monster,
right,
with Tyler Lockett, and even David Moore is underrated. So I think both these teams are very similar on offense, but I think also on defense, they're both not the greatest, to be honest. I think the weakness for both those teams is defense, and I think that the next game meeting between these two teams will really be probably an offensive show, I think, again.
Yeah, and I love that you bring up defense because that's a perfect transition. So after Seattle, actually, the Cardinals had the number 10 ranked defense in the league, and that's crazy to me as well. They were top 10, but still. Right now, after Tua ran all over him, they're 19 of 32. But it doesn't even matter, because guess who's dead last? Seattle. Seattle has the worst defense in the NFL right now. And the Cardinals, again, proved that when they played Seattle. You just see them get that edge. They were all over Russell Wilson. They were sacking him. Even without Chandler Jones, the D-line was all over him. They were pressuring him. They made him throw away. He threw 3 picks in that game sometimes it was because of pressure, sometimes it was just because I don't really know what he saw, and he just lobbed up a ball, and like that one that Budda Baker just snatched up, and then DK Metcalf inevitably tracked him down. I don't know what Russ saw when he threw that ball. And so, they just outplayed Seattle, and I think there's so many things about them that make them a threat. And when you talk about strength of schedule as well, the Cardinals, they lost to the Lions, they lost to the Panthers. Miami yesterday, whole different story. I could go on. That could be a separate debate about Zane Gonzalez and how he needs to get off that team. But when I start having like heart attacks later in the regular season because of Zane Gonzalez, he's getting my medical bill, because it is absolutely because of him. He's cost us too much, but that's a different story. The Seahawks, they don't win the big games that they play. They've played 2 tough games so far, I would say, and that was against the Cardinals and the Bills, and they lost both of those games last week to the Bills. The Cardinals, again, lost the Lions, lost the Panthers, but they win their big games. They beat a full-strength 49ers team week 1. They beat Seattle simply because they outplayed them. They just did, and I think that's a difference, and going forward in the season, The Cardinals have a harder schedule too, so that will be interesting to see. Like they still have to play Buffalo and things like that, whereas the Seahawks get 4. Who do they get in a row? They get the Eagles, Giants, Jets, and Washington 4 weeks in a row, and those should be 4 easy weeks for them. And the Cardinals don't have that advantage. So I don't know why. I just don't really have as much faith in Seattle. I think their defense is, again, dead last in the league. They can't do anything. And Russ just, he's phenomenal, but he's not enough to be carrying that team on his own, and with the offense too. Talk about receiving core as well. I think the Cardinals are just about as even with them as it gets receiving wise as well.
Yeah, I think even though with the bad defense, I think in big game, I think Russell Wilson can carry them. He's so good. He's probably the leading candidate for MVP in my opinion, and he can just do so much. He's one of the smartest players in the game right now, and I think when it comes down to big games against divisional rivals, I think he can pull it out and get the win.
Yeah, it's fun to watch Kyler and Russ play against each other too, because they both played baseball, so they're very similar quarterbacks in that they're both mobile, and again, like you said, they are super accurate deep ball passers. But again, like when they do those runs and stuff, they slide the same way and they don't ever get hurt because it's just they're super just similar in that regard. And yeah, I don't know if we're talking the biggest threat in the NFC West. I just think the answer just has to be Arizona. You can't defend against Kyler Murray because you never know what he's going to do. DeAndre Hopkins is the best receiver in the league, top 3. I'll give it if you don't want to argue that. But there's just so many weapons to them. And again, if you're comparing Arizona, Seattle, neither team has a great defense. I wouldn't argue Arizona's defense against many teams in the NFL. But when it comes to Seattle being dead last defense, and even Arizona bests them there. So biggest threat, Arizona, I think, hands down.
Yeah, I think it's going to be fun to watch these teams battle it out. Many years to come on, because Kyler Murray, he's so young. He's going to be amazing. And
yeah, I think it's going to be great, and they play again in a couple weeks, so that'll be another test to see which one of these two teams comes out on top. But we're going to throw it over to a commercial, and we will be right back.